A good way to break down economics is to look at it into two different categories. You essentially have microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics deals with markets within an economy. Now within markets, essentially you have competition, where there are multiple businesses competing to satisfy the wants and demands of consumers. There are two types of competition. There's perfect competition and imperfect competition. Perfect competition simply does not exist, but essentially there are many different types of imperfect competition. Now, the government, essentially here in the US, we are a capitalist society in which you have free trade and anyone can start their own business and have a chance to, again, make money their own way. Now, within our society, we also have something called Laissez Faire, which essentially says the business is not supposed to be intervened by the government. The government is supposed to essentially have hands off and let businesses conduct themselves and only essentially regulate them when necessary. Now, when it comes to competition, sometimes you have what occurs is a monopoly. A monopoly is when one company has way too much market share of a particular product. And again, that could be a good or a service. Now, when a monopoly occurs, that one company has way too much power as far as dictating what the price is going to be, and essentially the competition is far too imperfect and the government must intervene. This commonly occurs if two big companies are looking to actually do a merger, and if they offer the same product and service and it's going to then become one company, that might then become a monopoly, and again the consumers within the country would then be punished, and the government does not want to see that. So that's the one time when the government really is going to intervene, is when a monopoly competition could potentially occur. When it comes to microeconomics, another great way to look at it is to look at supply and demand. Now, supply and demand could be for, again, a particular product, whether it be a good or a service, and realize that supply and demand reflect one another. As the demand for a product goes up, the supply must increase with it. Now, where the supply and demand actually cross one another is known as the equilibrium point, also typically known as the break-even point. Now, when it comes to economics, it's all about being as efficient as possible. Microeconomics, again, is looking at the economy from the smaller perspective of really a certain area. Now, for example, let's look at Colombia. Colombia is very good at making coffee. Coffee is in high demand across the world, but it can really only be grown, coffee beans essentially, can only be grown in certain geographical locations throughout the world. So Colombia exports a lot of coffee because they have the ability to have an absolute advantage over their competition. They specialize. Again, they are very good at only doing that instead of essentially, for example, manufacturing automobiles. Colombia is not a good manufacturing country. They're great for growing crops that can only be grown in that geographic area. So for an economy to really be successful, they often must specialize in the production process or products that really give them an absolute advantage over their competition. If you have any questions about microeconomics, please do not hesitate contacting us. Thank you.